Good morning. Welcome to this live demo on Clarive. Clarive is an end-to-end tool, means that Clarive can start with the raise of an incident, reporting a bug, making a demand for a new application, making a demand for a change, and it will take that through the life cycle and end up with deploying the changes to the production environment. So during that process, we gathered a lot of information, and in Clarive, we store that in the database in categories, in what we call topic categories. Like you see here, problem, incident, change request, or topic categories, release, change sets, or topic categories. And these topic categories, we relate them to one another. We make relationships between them so that they have children. Releases, for instance, have change requests that will be brought to production. Releases have change sets that have relationship with your development work to be deployed. And so we come to a model. And in this model, you see here we have the operational part with incident, problem, and change request. We have the top-down way of deploying of managing releases. The releases are planned for a monthly or quarterly. Have change requests that gets related to that release. Have change sets with the changes, and they get deployed in the environments. Second way of deploying is the bottom-up, where we have in fact development that knows that things are ready. They bundle them up in smaller sprints, and they deploy them so they have smaller chunks of changes that are brought to the environments. For today, we are not going to focus on the operational part. We are going to focus on the releases and the change sets, because we know that you have Windows environment, you have a Unix environment, you have mainframe with Endevor. So today we are going to focus on deploying to WAR file to Unix, deploying a .NET application to Windows, and deploying a Endevor package to the mainframe. In the early stages, we're going to do that individually by change set. So the change set for Unix, a change set for .NET, a change set for mainframe. But going to production, we will deploy the release with all the change sets that are related to it in one go with a single job. And these jobs are created with a pipeline rule in Clarive, a rule that is versioned, and that for all that we are going to deploy today, we are going to use the same pipeline. So for all of the environments, for all of the technologies, and for all of the platforms, because we will deploy in fact 3 technologies: WAR, Java, we will deploy .NET, and we will deploy mainframe, COBOL, and we will go to three different platforms, which will be mainframe, Unix, and a Windows server. And we will do that for multiple environments, development, QA, and production. And we will all reuse the same agnostic pipeline that will generate the jobs for us. So these topic categories all have their life cycle with statuses transitioning. Some of them are automated, some of them are manual. So going to the tool now, you will see here, you see the GUI, the UI of Clarive, the user interface. What you see here is the full UI. Every possible item on the menu is present because I have used my user ID that has all authority. Once you are in a production environment and you are participating in the process, you won't have the same view. You will get a view depending on the role that you have in the organization, and depending on the role you get for the application. So the view that one gets from in Clarive is limited to his role, and he won't get every menu option that I have here. But for demo purposes, for us, it's easier to use this. So otherwise, we have to log in, log out all the time. So here we have, in fact, the topics. When I take them, you will see these are all the topics that we had in our model defined. And from here, we can just select one. And by doing this, it will give us a list of all the, in my case, I selected releases. It gives me a list of all the releases that are currently in motion. So between the new state and the closed state. So the ones that are that we are currently working on. So that's a list. We can also see that in the Kanban view, make it a bit larger. So we see here in what status we have releases, and in Clarive we also relate environments to releases. So here we have the production environment related to deploy to QA, in QA's QA development. So we have a view of which releases have been deployed in which environment and where our releases that are currently not deployed or will be deployed or are ready to be deployed, in what status there are. So we have a complete overview on our releases. By having this, we can also view this on an application base. So we have here our applications, we have the environments, and we can see which releases for what application have been deployed in which environment. And since we deploy in Clarive change sets, we can also see that on the change set level, so we can see for each of the applications which change sets are currently deployed in what environment. Looking at the details of a release, well, for each of the topic categories that we have a form, and we collect data for that particular topic category. So for release, we put in production date, the due date, which are the dates related to when the release will go in production or is planned to go in production. We see the change sets that are related, the change sets that have a relationship with development. So you see here that I have a revision that is related. I can see the difference reporting from the change set. So that's what we get. And for that release, we also get an environment plan. An environment plan, so the planned start date for development, for test, for QA, pre-production, for the environments. This can be made by the release manager, but it's also possible that he has to request these environments. So we send out at that time requests, and when they get approved, we build that environment dynamically. Since we have that environment plan built for each of the releases that we have defined and that we are currently working on, we can just wrap this up and create a release roadmap. So in that case, we will get a view on when we are expecting are planning to have releases in development, test, QA, and which releases we will have. So this gives you an overview of where your releases on when they are planned and when they are supposed to be in the environment that you have in your organization. And that release has also a relationship with change requests. These change requests, to relate one, we just go in edit of that release, and we can just select here more change requests, and we will get only change requests that are ready for scheduling, because that's one of the change request goes through its process, and once it's ready to be scheduled, we can include it into a release. Now, these change requests, they can be created in Clarive directly, but it's well possible, and we know that you have Remedy, but we don't have Remedy here in-house. So I'm going to show you an integration with another tool that is similar, that works, that integration can work a similar way. I'm going to show you an integration with ServiceNow. So the change requests, they are not created directly in Clarive. They are coming from an outside source, for instance, ServiceNow. And when I create a change request in ServiceNow, the goal is that it gets also created in Clarive, so it can go through the development and deployment lifecycle with Clarive, and that we will synchronize the statuses in Clarive with the statuses in ServiceNow. So this is a change request for the liberty of the demo. This is demo CR. I just create that one. And you'll see once it is created in ServiceNow, the number is 30,117. It's in the status new. Going to Clarive, the topic change request, you will see that I get here also a change request. A change request for demo CR. So I have mapped the description and the title, which fields to map, that's customizable, and it's got a relationship with the ServiceNow number. So now I can start working in Clarive on that change request by going in edit and making some changes and just assigning to someone. And at a moment, we decide that now this change request is ready for development. And we don't synchronize all the statuses. We have defined milestone statuses, and ready for development is one of them. So when I transition my change request to ready for development, and I go into ServiceNow and refresh that one, you will see that my status has changed to scheduled. So I mapped ready for development to the status scheduled in ServiceNow. This is the same way that we work with other tools like Jira, like Remedy, like a service desk, and it's possible to consolidate in that way multiple tools with change requests into change requesting Claris, take them through the life cycle, and finally deploy them with a release. So deploying, that's where we are going through that now. To deploy, I have change sets that will be deployed, and what we will deploy in this demo are in fact a WAR file to a Linux box. In my case, it will, for development, it will deploy to a Docker container. For QA, it will deploy to an Amazon instance, and for production, it will deploy to a real server on premise. And I have another team, which is Chris, and he will do a .NET deployment. And then we will move on to the mainframe, where we'll do an Endevor package deployment. And once all of these deployments are done, have gone through QA and are ready for production, we will finally deploy the release with all of the changes at once with the same job. So I have here a small application. It's a WAR file that has been deployed, so that's the index file of that WAR file that I'm going to change now as a developer. And I want to do that in a continuous way. It means that I want to make a change when I commit to the repository and push. I want Clarive to be triggered to pick up that revision to start the build and deployment to the development environment. So as a developer, I go to my IDE, and I have here my index file, and I just gonna change. Make a change to that file. It says for the Liberty demo. Save that change and commit to my repository. Okay, this is the ref of the 13. Just committing that. And by committing that, Clarive gets triggered, and when I go in here, I have a monitor, and by refreshing this, I have a job that starts running. That starts running for the change set that has the revision that I just pushed related, so I can view here and see the difference that I made. So I have changed, make the change here, I made the change here. So that's the revision that is related to that change set. And currently we are running a job to build and deploy that change to my Tomcat server in a Docker container. I can follow that job while it's running, and I can also do additional things while I'm building and deploying. I will not only just build and deploy, I can run third-party tools. I can run a Sonar quality analysis, so static quality analysis, Sonar Cube in that case, and I can include that in my job. So here I am running my static quality analysis. It has finished. I have the possibility in Clarive to go and see the quality portal, so I can see the job that has run here, and I can see whether it passed or not the quality analysis, and whether it's improving or it's a status quo in this case. Further down now, it's building. It's a Maven build in my case. It is looking for creating a Docker container and making a backup, and it's now ready with preparing everything to be deployed. So it's going to continue now with the deployment. So it has deployed now, and it indicates me that this WAR file has been deployed to Tomcat, and I can check the deployments here. So just by looking here, you will see that this is exactly the change that I've made. The errors that I have made, that I still have here, or that I typed here, is even visible also. So I have deployed this, and I have an indication where it is. In the meantime, after I have deployed, I could run my automated testing. I could run my Selenium testing, or I can run my performance testing with Gmeter. So here I have included as an example a run of Gmeter after I have deployed my WAR file to my Tomcat server. So now, and from here in the job, I can go to the Gmeter dashboard and I can see the results of the test that I just ran with Gmeter in my job. And means that now I see that my job has finished, and means that I have now deployed that change to my development environment. So now we are going to switch to the other development team, which is Chris, and he's going to go into making changes to a .NET application. Over to you, Chris.
Okay, good morning, everybody. I will now share my screen. And you see here I'm working on a Windows system, and my website is still down. So the one thing I'm going to do now first is I'm going to start the website, so you're sure that it's the website that we will run. And when I go back to my website and I refresh my screen, he will load the data in that website. And what this website does is it shows me a list of all the movies, but I want to have more information in this website, and I want to have a rating on top of this website. Now you only see title, release, genre, and price. I want to be able to also put my ratings into it and see my ratings into it. So let's go back, and I'm gonna now shut down this website. Website. And now I will go back to Clarive.
Chris, you got some background on your microphone.
So I'll go back. Sorry. So I go back now to Clarive, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to deploy my revision. So you saw Geert doing his an automatic deploy. So when committing the code to the repository, to the source code management repository, Clarive starts directly, creates a change set, and starts directly the job. In my case, we will do it otherwise, is that, or I'm a development team and I deliver the code to another team which will deploy it, or it's a third party which will deliver the code to us and deliver the code to our repository. And what we see here is that in our case, we have a version 2 delivered to it which will deal with those ratings. What I need to do now is push that rating, or drag that rating into the revision set and save my change set. This is the non-automated way, so you can always do that in the change set, or you can also do it once the code is committed to the Git repository or to the SVN repository, to any source code management system, then it is directly triggered and deployed to your development environment. So now my change set is ready to be deployed. So I'm going to refresh my change set, and you see there's a revision onto it, is 2.0, and like in the Java version, you also see here, and I did some more changes than only one line into it. You will see all the changes what has been done for making it possible to show the ratings. Like you see it, I do the bindings to a database and to edit my ratings in that application. And what we're going to do now is back to the change set. I'm going to start my deployment and I'm going to run my job for that deployment. First of all, I need to choose, like we said before, our main complete pipeline, because we will deploy everything with one pipeline. I have a version of a pipeline which allows me to deploy an earlier version, which uses an earlier version of a pipeline, if I need to restore it, and I see dates. And especially, I want to focus here on my time. It's a time slot when I could deploy. It's, in this case, is green. Why it is green? Because I have a calendar behind it, and that calendar allows me for development to deploy at any moment in time, because everything is green. I have another example here, which is production. So I can put a calendar on every environment, and on this production you see I can only deploy on the green slots, which is from Monday from 0 to 5, Tuesday 0 to 5. Tuesday I have also a slot during the daytimes. The gray fields are not deployable at all, so you can't deploy on those gray times. And in the red times, you're allowed to deploy urgent fixes into those environments. But we have also different scopes of it. So not only that calendar is available for environments, it's available for servers and for applications. And what Clarive is doing, and Geert will show you later on, is Clarive will calculate the best time for deploying that application. So let's start now the deployment. You see now the job is being created and my monitor picks it up, and now you can follow up that job like he did in also with his deployment. You can follow every step what has been done in the job. When I refresh it, so it will continue running the job for the .NET deployment. So what you see here is he is now on the .NET, and now he starts setting his project name. He starts now packing, unpacking, build the application, and continue deploying the .NET part. So what you have seen it, this will take some time. It will take about 5 to 6 minutes to do it, and it's a long pause. Uh, uh, and by this, we can then later on see if everything is deployed correctly on the servers after Geert has I handed over back to Geert for his Endevor deployment. Geert, you can take up.
Okay, thank you, Chris. So here we go. Now we are in the department of the mainframe development. And our mainframe developers, they use source code repository on the mainframe. They use Endevor. And they have done their work, and they have packaged the change and approved it, and what we pick up here in Clarive are approved packages. So looking here at the same project Explorer view as Chris had, I have my mainframe application, and here I see in fact my Endevor repositories. I see my test to QA, my emergency packages. So I can from here, and this is a direct link, so I can just go and ask to Endevor which are the packages that start with demo. So that just by clicking this, it will give me which package is all ready to be deployed. This is going straight to Endevor. And I have here, for instance, demo package 10. I can see that demo package 10 has made the change to this COBOL program. And I can have here further functionality coming from Endevor that has been built into Klaris. So I can see here which version is currently in production. This is my test version that I'm going to bring to QA. And I can just select one and run some Endevor reports on it. So I can see my sources, I can see the source, I can see what changes have been made. It's indicated for this package. I can see the history. I could see if there are components used, or if this is being used as a component in another component. So this is the element that is part of my package. And so like we did with .NET, we have a change set to bring that package, or to deploy that package. So by editing that, we can, as with the .NET application that we just saw, we have the revision box here. We can just drag and drop our Endevor package to that change set, save the change set, and we get here the possibility to create a new job. So I will now create a new job to promote that Endevor package with the same pipeline as the one that Chris used for .NET and the one that I used earlier for the WAR file. That has been explained by Chris. So I just create my job and running, and it starts running. So I can, when I refresh here, From here, I can also see which jobs are related to a change set. Just by selecting that, I see that now I have a job running, and I can go to the full log to see that it is. Currently, it has detected that it has to do some work for Endevor. It has submitted the job on the mainframe to start the deployment of that package, and it will continue. And we trap, in fact, the result of that job. So the chest queue, we hook into the chest queue so that we can make the result visible in a way that we would do that on the mainframe. So with the question mark, so we have here the messages JCL, system messages, and we have the inspect that has been run from Endevor, the result of that, the execute that has been run, the result of that. So we can view all of that in Clarive without having to go to the mainframe. So my job for QA has ended successfully, which makes that my change set now is also change status. It's no longer ready for QA, but it has gone through in QA. So looking now that I have this change set in QA, it might, we will do some testing, and it will go finally, eventually it will go to ready for deployment state, ready to go to the production environment. So looking at my release that will bring these 3 change sets to the production environment, and looking at statuses, I can see that the Word file is already ready to be deployed to production. My mainframe application is in QA because it needs to be tested, and Chris's application is currently ready for QA. I don't know how the work is gone, Chris. Did we finish the work for that change set yet? Chris?
Yes, it's now just in, going into ready for deployment.
Yeah. So the work on the .NET application has been finished also. This one is also ready to go. So we're just waiting now for the mainframe application to be ready to be deployed to production. So that means also, that's also why my release is still in the NQA state, because I still have a change set in NQA. When this change set, when I have done my testing for this particular change, and I decide that I can move it on to be deployed to production, my release will move on through the lifecycle automatically. From NQA, it will go through the status waiting for approval, because we can build in, if necessary, an approval status, and we can also build in an approval process. So this release has gone to waiting for approval, and we have generated, in fact, approval requests on multi-level for the application that participate in that release if necessary. For instance, we see that the movie database didn't need an approval, but for the other 2 applications, we need approvals on 3 levels. And we have sent out to the approvers a mail. So they got a mail that we request the approval for this release, for this application, and they can approve it from here. So by clicking here, we will register the approval. So we will register here the approval, and when he has approved, then we will wait for all the approvals to arrive before we will start deployment to production. But we won't do that now. We will just go on, and we will promote, in fact, the release to production. In case of a release, well, we have to consider multiple change sets. We will use the same pipeline that we have used for the change sets, but now for a release. This has been explained by Chris, so this is the time that we get in the date. We can select another one if needed, and it will take, in fact, all of my change sets. But since we can have calendars for the environment, for the application, and for particular servers, we have to consider everything that will be touched by this release. So that's why in Clarive we keep, sorry for that, that's why in Clarive we keep, in fact, the dependencies in the database. So we know that the Endevor package that will be deployed, the JIT revisions, we know which services are going to be touched, we know which applications are going to be touched, and this will help us calculate the time that that we can allow this release to be deployed. So now by clicking on create a new job, I have in fact started the deployment of that release, and you see that in the monitor we have now a job running for multiple chain sets that are part of that release to bring them to production. So we will group now mainframe deployment, .NET deployment, War deployment to different platforms in a single job generated by the same pipeline that has been used before, that has been used to deploy the chain sets. And here you see that it started running. It has detected, it has to deploy for Endevor, it has to deploy for .NET, it has to deploy the WAR file to the production environment. It is now working on the .NET ports, and after that it will continue with the WAR port, so that it will just deploy every technology that we had in our chain sets one go to the production environment. So while this job is running with Clarive, we have a lot of information that we gather during the process, and that information we want to make it available to the users, and we want to make it available in dashboarding. Dashboarding, that are also rules. And first thing we have here is the dashboarding that we have set up, and we have set it up for the roles that participate in the process. So for the incident manager, for the problem manager, for instance, also for the release manager. So looking at the release, we get information about releases. These dashboards are interactive, they're real time, and they're configurable. So I can just configure that one and say, well, I don't like a bar chart, I like a pie chart, and just apply it, and it will change immediately. They're interactive. I don't want to see the others, and I don't want to see the deployed ones, so it will adapt immediately my chart to the request that I make. And all of them are drillable, so I have here 17 ready for deployment chain sets and releases, so I can just drill into that from the dashboard. And further down, I can make a combination of charts and of lists, so I can see the release and sprint planning that I have, and I can see here also the task burn down for today and for yesterday, if anything we have run, but in this case we didn't. These are dashboards that are set on the role level, but that dashboard can also be added to a particular topic, to a particular release, for instance. So in the case that the release that we are currently working for, so going to that release here, at the bottom of that release, I have also a tab dashboard. And by selecting the tab dashboard, I get information on that release. So I get information now on what status, how long it has been in the status. Well, today we create that release and we immediately deployed it, so it hasn't been very long in certain statuses. And so we can get information on the chain sets and on the jobs that have run. If we would take a release that has been worked on earlier, like this one, and go to that dashboard, we can see here that for that particular release, the timing is registered. We can see also that we have here an overview of the remaining work in demand, in development, in QA. We can see that test cases have been related to that release. We can see that defects have been raised while testing that release. So that is all data that is captured and that we can present in dashboards, but not on the overall role level, but for a particular topic category, in this case a release, which is maybe one of the most interesting topics to have a dashboard related to. We have also the overview of all the jobs that have run for that release, and by this time I think that my deployment to production is waiting for an approval. That's another possibility that we have. So we can have approvals during the process, during the workflow, but we can also pause the the deployment in the middle somewhere and ask for an approval. So I have now in my job prepared everything to be deployed, and I ask now for an approval to start the actual deployment, the real deployment. So looking at my log file, all that needs to be done, static quality analysis, builds, backups have been taken, and it's now starting my job that has been approved, and you see that it starts with deployment to production for Endevor, so it's going to continue now with the complete deployment of the technologies to three environments. So with that, I would like to thank you, and I hope that we have given you a good overview of the functionalities and the possibilities that you have with Clarive in release management.